I don't know if you guys kind of know the history of fertilizers and plant fertilizers and nitrogen, but up until 1909, I believe it was, the only way that nitrogen could be fixed into the soil, so plants need nitrogen. All living things need nitrogen. We're all made up of nitrogen. All of our amino acids and all of our proteins in our body need nitrogen to be built. But so plants need nitrogen as well, but plants need the nitrogen to be fixed to the soil. So the nitrogen needs to bind with a carbon or hydrogen, so I won't go too sciencey on you, in order for them to be able to use it. So up until 1909, the plants required legumes, leguminous plants, to do that. So legumes have special bacteria on their roots that fix the nitrogen to the soil so the plants can use it as food in exchange for a sugar. The bacteria fix the nitrogen to the soil, so they bind it to a carbon or a hydrogen so the plants can use that. But then during the war, we had a lot of ammonium nitrates left over after World War II, which is the main ingredient in explosives. And so they didn't know what to do with all this ammonium nitrate, and they thought maybe, you know, we could spray it on all of our forests to help the timber grow. And then they thought, well, no, why don't we just spray it on all of our plants to help the food grow faster? So that perpetuated the whole system of fertilizers. But it's really interesting because up until that point, we just had to rely on legumes to fix the nitrogen to the soil. Fertilizers aren't a bad thing. A lot of people think that fertilizers, you know, they're terrible, they're bad, or a lot of people are confused. I hear someone says fertilizer's bad, someone else says it's great for the plants because it helps them. It's great for the plants when it's given to them in quantities that they can take up. So if you're giving plants fertilizers, like coffee grinds, for example, I use coffee grinds a lot on the plants because they're very high in nitrogen. Fruit trees, growing fruit trees need a lot of nitrogen. Some plants don't need a lot of nitrogen, and I mean that's just through learning and gardening that you kind of know which ones are heavier feeders. But if the plant doesn't need it, it won't take it, and then it sits in the soil. And when excess fertilizers sit in the soil, or excess nitrogen, and they're not taken up by plants, that's when you get the runoff of fertilizers, and that's what's bad. So that's what causes, I mean, erosion. It causes all kinds of nutrients and things to come in a place like this. It would come straight into the lake. So you've got to be careful. Like things like rice are fertilized so much that they only take up between 20 and 30% of the fertilizer, and the rest is just runoff. So that's when it's hurting the soil. So I was unsure about that for ages. I remember people telling me they were good, they were bad, whatever. So that's just so you know, they're good in the right quantities.